kind of gives you some basic steps on working with the pen tool. All right. So if we go in to this game, all right, click on the link. It first starts by showing you how to use the pen just to make some straight lines. All right. So we left click and let go, and we have the ability to move our next point, right? And these points are called anchor points. All right. So if we're not pressing anything on the mouse, we are going to just move our mouse to the next point, left click, and then we can go to the third point and left click. All right, brings us to the next step. All right, and the reason we're doing this is that, remember, for our ornaments, we want to, like if you had an ornament of this Xbox controller, right, we have to tell the laser where the cut line is going to be. So the pen tool could be one method that you use to go around and trace the kind of the perimeter of your object, and that could be one way to do it. All right, I don't think that's going to be. We are going to talk about another method, but that would certainly be one. Or maybe to actually draw your objects, you would want to use the pen tool as well. All right. Did anybody get stuck with the first step on the Bezier method link? All right, the second method or the second test or use of the pen tool is to hold the shift key. All right, so I'm going to left click to establish my first point, and then instead of just kind of guessing what this is, if we hold the shift key, it constrains the mouse movement to 45-degree angles. All right, so if I move my mouse around, now it's just snapping to these different points, or different angles rather. So I'm still holding the shift, and I'm just moving around, and I am making a happy little house, as maybe Bob Ross would call it. All right, I'm going to pause there. Just make sure everybody's kind of up to speed, because the circle adds a whole nother element to this. When we get onto circular objects, it gets to be a little more challenging using the pen tool. All right, so what we're going to find, is that not showing? All right, so when we get to circles, here's where now we're kind of introducing some new type of stuff. All right, so if you've never made a circle with the pen, I would definitely pay attention to what I'm going to do here. Ryan, are you up to this point? Are you on the circle? All right, so what we're going to do is, you notice that there's these lines extending beyond the these points. All right, so what these are called handles up here. All right, so to create them, we click and drag. All right, so, and that allows us to have a curved line. All right, so I'm going to click and drag up to that point. Now I'm going to click and drag over to here and do the same thing. So I'm letting go now. I'm just like if it were a straight point. I'm going to that next spot, and then I'm going to go and click and drag. Left click and drag to get to the handle extended. Let go. And go to finally to our last point there, click and drag to extend past there. So you're always letting go of the mouse in between the points, and then you click and drag on the point to kind of extend that handle. We come to the heart now. All right, so now we can make this heart in 2 points. All right, but I would definitely pay attention to what I'm doing here, and then I'll do it together. All right, so the way you do this is if you left click and drag down to the right, we're going to hold the Alt key, and what that allows us to do is bring up the handle of that second one to the top so it's not symmetrical with the other one. Then we hover, just drag down, we're not pressing anything. We left click and drag to the right, or I'm sorry, to the left. My screen is zoomed out, so I ran out of room there. Oh, I forgot to hold the Alt key. So we're trying to make these V's. So left click, drag down to the left, then press Alt. We bring up the handle. And then finally get our last line in here like this. All right, so that's the practice. All right. We are going to work in Illustrator to really put that in and tie everything together here, hopefully today. All of our measurements and all of our pen activities. All right, so what I'd like everybody to do, and if you're kind of stuck on the practice game, we can move on and we'll kind of get it done in Illustrator. All right, so Aurora and anybody else that might be still working on that, the online one, you can take a break from that. And now we're going to come into Illustrator, all right? So I'd like you to make a new document. We're going to, you do have these print presets up at the top, so or different document setup preferences. So if we go to print and we choose letter, all right, so the first one here, and just change your units to inches. And make sure that your orientation is portrait, not landscape. All right, so that's our document setup. Anybody have questions on that? All right, so from there we have our document set up, and this is basically what we're going to create. So I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to make another document here. I'll work through it with you guys. Actually, no, I'm going to work, I don't want to. So we're going to end up, you guys are all going to have the same size shapes in the same location, all right? Because that's what measuring is all about and having them set up. So you can start, this first shape is kind of like an L. Actually, I'll turn off my guides. So I would, just like we did in the practice activity, use your pen tool, all right? Just click, let go, go up to the top, all right? It doesn't, we're not going to be too concerned with our measurements right now because we're going to customize that. So just use your pen tool and kind of make this you know, kind of L-ish shape. Now, if we talk about colors, all right, for each of these lines, all right, if anybody has something like this, remember we have our stroke and our fill color. So, does this shape here have any fill to it right now? And how do you know that, Jackie? Yes, on our toolbar, right? I just want everybody to remember that the solid box is your fill. That would be the color inside of it. The box with the hole through it is what's called your stroke color, basically the outline. All right. So did everybody use your pen tool to make this type of shape with no fill and a stroke? Ryan, you okay? All right, so drawing the shape, kind of getting the rough proportions of the design is one thing, but now when we're really trying to apply measurements, it is important to use our measuring tools. So the first thing we're going to do is, as my directions say, turn on the rulers. All right, so Lewis, what does it say for me to do to turn on the rulers? Control R, all right? So everybody see that? If you press that on your keyboard, Control R will turn on or turn off these rulers. All right. Next thing is our guides. All right. So if we left click in a ruler and drag over, we create guides. So for this first one, it says my X is at 1. So that's the distance left and right. So I'm going to drag over a guide to 1. Now visually this looks like it's right on the ruler, right? However, if we look in our properties palette over on the side, my measurement or value there is 0.994. So I got pretty close, but not exactly precise. So in Illustrator, you can use, the visual ruler to kind of ballpark it, but then I would say after that, use your property inspector to get it exact. All right, so if I type in 1 and press enter, now this guide is exactly at 1 left to right. Does everybody see that? Does anybody need me to show you how to make a guide or to set the exact location of it again? Ryan? Okay. Do you have your ruler visible? No? Yeah? All right. So to make a guide, you just move your mouse over here. It's got to be somewhere in this dark area. Then I left click and drag it over. So you can use the ruler on the top to try to get close. All right, try to get it at 1. As I said here, your X value is 1. But then you can use your property inspector to really get it exactly at 1. All right. Let's see. 1, how would I make a horizontal guide at 1? Can you walk us through the step?
What do you say?
How would I make so right now I have a vertical guide at 1. Do you see that? This blue line is 1 inch over from the left side. So how would I get a horizontal guide at 1?
Wait, you're using pencil, right? When you just click over the side of it or something like that?
Well, the pen tool creates lines, right? These guides aren't actually printing, they're just kind of visual references or organizers. So did you see how I left clicked and dragged and I made a guide?
Okay, I got it. So is there something you can drag from the bottom of it to make it horizontal or something like that?
Well, I don't have a ruler on the bottom. That would be a good guess. But we do see a ruler up here, right? So
Yeah.
I think you're on the right track. So I would kind of, drag it down and try to get it to be in alignment with 1 there. All right. Now, am I exactly at 1 in the vertical direction?
No, but
Okay, go ahead, 1. How do you know I'm not exactly at 1?
because you can see it's like a little bit off, like it's kind of below, but I'm pretty sure it's probably at the top, I think. It has like the numbers, the X and Y axis, I'm pretty sure.
All right, so I
Or
mean,
that, or it's one on the right.
so visually, and your eyes are pretty good. It's a little off, but we can use something else in our screen will tell us that we're not exactly at 1. Danny, do you know where we can determine and show?
Properties panel, that little top box.
Yes.
Yes.
So what should I change to 1? Which field here?
It should be the Y.
The Y. Why?
Because it's on the Y axis opposed to the X1, which we set that from.
All right. Yeah, I was kind of making a bad joke there, but good job.
It's alright.
All right. So, all right. So that's how the property inspector can be very useful, right? We can decide and tell exactly where those guides are. All right. So so now we could take this shape, all right, which I'm having a hard time selecting because it's directly over my guide. Let's see if this moves it. No, that moves my guide also. That is kind of a tricky part. So what you can do is you can view and go to guides and lock them. All right, so now I just get this and I can kind of snap it to that. All right. But actually it's telling me my X and Y are still a little bit off there. Let's see if I can select. All right, my guides are locked. All right. So the other thing that I want to do is we want to make this, we gave it a rough size for this shape. I'd like you to have a specific width and height. All right. So you could go from here. You could use some math. You could say, all right, if it's supposed to be a 1/2 inch wide and I started at 1, then it should, I can resize it to go to a 1/2 there. Actually, I think that's supposed to be, that doesn't seem very, all right, I'll leave it at that. That's what I had that as. All right, and my height, I could do the same thing. It should be coming to 1.5, kind of visually. All right, there would be my shape. Now, does that prove out correct? All right, Jordan, is my shape exactly 1/2 by 1/2? Come in, Jordan. All right, I guess Jordan's not there. Cassidy, I know that you don't have a microphone, but is my shape exactly 1/2 by 1/2? All right, Cassidy's not here anymore either. I guess. Ryan Mahoney, let's see if you're there. Is my shape exactly a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch? I'm looking in the chat for some answers here. All right. Amy, how about you? Is my shape exactly a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch? Yes? How can we prove that? Okay, and is mine? What would be the decimal equivalent of a 1/2? Kind of an easy one, or it should be. Right, so you're on the right track. So over here, right, our width and our height.
Yeah, but mine doesn't show 1 and the other not. Mine shows 0 to 2.
So depending on how far in you're zoomed to your screen, will change your ruler. All right, so if I am far zoomed out, I don't see as many of those units, right? Whereas if I zoom in, now it's really showing me a lot of that detail. All right, so what I was hoping somebody would say is that if we look at my shape, because it's selected, it's only 0.498, so it's not exactly a 1/2. All right, we can put in fractions here also. All right, so, and this chain here will maintain the proportions. So if I say right now, if I did 1/4, it's automatically going to make the height 1/4. Whereas if I unclick the link and I type in 1/2, it'll still keep the height at whatever it was, and I would have to put in a 1/2 there. All right, so everybody should have a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch kind of sideways L here at 1 and 1. Anybody stuck there? Aurora? right, the second shape we're going to make is this kind of house shape like we did on the in the exercise online. All right, I'm not too concerned with the size of this, of the sidewall here, but your overall should end up being at that. So now we're getting into some harder numbers to type in, right? Again, you could use the rulers to draw this out, and actually a useful tool, you can reset your starting point. So instead of doing math and adding from here, you can bring down and reestablish your 0 point by taking where these rulers intersect. You can drag that down to basically where your starting point is. So if I said that this had to be 1 1/8, all right, well now I can come up here. I could actually make a new guide. So I'd say 1/2, 1/4, 1/8. All right, and that's where this would end up. My height, 2 3/8. So I'd have 2, remember 8ths are every 2 lines. So that's 1, 2, 3, all right? So I can make that guide, and I can just kind of resize it to fit to that. All right, so you can certainly use guides to set up your document, or like we did with the first one, just kind of make your rough shape first, and then use your property inspector in order to give your location your size. Now since I reestablished my 0 point, it really throws things off, so I'm going to bring that back there. The one thing you do want to make sure too, we saw this in AM, make sure in your transform box that you have your reference point being the upper left little dot, because if you have it, some people had it on the center of the object, and that really throws off your coordinates. All right, so if you get the basic shape created, then to resize it, if you didn't use rulers and guides, you can still use your property inspector. All right, so if I say X and Y first, all right, let's get our location. So if we say it's 3 3/4, all right. Now, if you type in 3 space 3/4, you get, actually it did give us what it wanted to be. And then Y was 1. All right. Now we get into 8ths. All right, so if we have 1 space 1/8, does that give us the right thing? Yes, it did. All right, so I didn't think that worked that way. So when you're writing, what's that called when you have a whole number and a fraction? Does anybody know what that's called? That is called a mixed number. All right, when you have like 2 1/16, right? You have a whole number and a fraction. All right, so when you're writing a mixed number as your width or your height, so in this case it'd be 2 5/8. So we have 2 space 5/8. All right, so I knew that something so I know that 5/8 is 0.625, so that is not correct. All right, I don't know why it worked before but not now. So, but don't fear, we do have a way of doing this. We can type 5/8. All right, so as we saw, as I was saying, 5/8 is 6.25. So, I'm sorry, that's supposed to be 3/8. So I can type in 3/8, so 0.375, and then I can just change the 0 to a 2. All right, so now by looking at this shape, and I can prove it over here, it's located at 3 3/4 in the X, 1 in the Y, our width is 1 1/8, and our height is 2 3/8. All right, so when you guys are done with this and you print them out, it should be in the same exact location as where mine is. All right, and then we'll go back to the heart after that, or so I'll kind of come around and see where you're working on with that. If anybody online at home is struggling and getting things in the wrong place, let me know. We can try to talk through it or do a screen share. Oh, I'm going to have a lot of dead spots in this video. I just realized I forgot to press pause. Alright, the last part on this is the heart shape. Alright, so I'll recreate this. Alright, so remember, when we're making this heart, alright, we're going to left click and drag down to the right. Before we let go of that left button, we're going to press the Alt key and we try to make a V. Alright, so we come up to that point. Usually the smart guides will come on and kind of tell you when you're in alignment with it, but we don't need to be super precise. So we're just going to make this V, then we let go of both keys. Alright, so I'm just moving my mouse around. I'm not pressing any of the buttons. I'm going to wait until I see this pink line show up. That shows us that that we're directly under this other point, right? We're in alignment with that. Now I'm going to left click and drag down to the left. And I'm trying to adjust the curvature of this kind of right side of the heart. So, you know, this would be, if we kind of did something like this, like kind of flat, skinny, kind of give it some curvature, make a healthy heart there. All right. Now, before I let go of the left click, again, I'm going to hold the Alt key and I'm going to keep dragging up to make another V, right? So I'm talking about this shape here created by our lines makes a V. So I'm going to bring it up, try to get it to be in alignment with this. Then I'm going to let go of both, and then I can hover. I'm not pressing anything. I'm going to move my mouse up to this initial point. I'm going to left click. I'm going to drag down to try to make a V again up at the top. And there is kind of our heart there. And then we can just use our measurements up here to specify again what I'm looking for. So our width would be 1/16. Add our 2. And our height is 2 5/8. So we have 5/8 is 0.625, and we're going to add our 2. And then our X is 5, and our Y is 1 3/16. So I'm going to do 3/16 and add the 1. All right. I was going to talk today about, or we mentioned starting off about a compound path. That's why I have this game controller in here. We'll pick up on that tomorrow. All right, so I would like you all at home to take a screenshot, show me that you made some progress on this. We'll print them out tomorrow or actually I'll print them out tomorrow to see and check all your measurements, but I would like to kind of just see that you have a start on this. I know everybody else in here has made a start on it, all right? So that would be the process though. What we should find, if we were to print these out, I can place my paper over yours and your size and location should be in the exact same place. All right, so that's demonstrating that we are reading the ruler, or we're typing in dimensions and locating our shapes to be exactly in the same place. All right, so online, if your final part of your document from today would be to make a new screenshot, and we can just copy this and then go to your Google Doc, which most of you have started, and just paste it into there. All right, so that way everything's in one place and I can see that you have been making progress on what we're working on today.